If you thought your day was off to a bad start, imagine sitting down to your morning coffee, about to browse TikTok, only to see people in hazmat suits and respirators march up to your workplace and start pouring sewage everywhere. Yet, as outlandish as that sounds, that's how employees at two of the UK's largest water companies started their day. The good news is that this was only a protest and the sewage was fake. The bad news is that these water companies and others like them are responsible for discharging unbelievable amounts of untreated sewage into our waters. So this protest was actually pretty tame by comparison. These water companies neglect critical infrastructure whilst paying millions to their executives and billions to their shareholders, whilst we're the ones to deal with the consequences. However, decades of underinvestment and profiteering are finally catching up to them, and the public mood has started to shift. So to understand what's really going on, stick around as Jonas takes it on. Wastewater treatment certainly isn't a glamorous subject, and it's obviously not the best topic of conversation around the dinner table. Yet it is something that people should be talking about. The UK operates a combined sewer system, one in which wastewater from houses and rainwater runoff are transported together through a single pipe, where they're taken to water treatment facilities before being discharged into waterways. The benefit of this system is that it is relatively cheap and simple. The drawback, as we've seen recently, is that during times of heavy rainfall, the volume of that water can vastly exceed the capacity of the system. This means that untreated sewage will be discharged to prevent it from backing up into people's homes, which would cause the foulest of messes. The situation was exacerbated over recent years when the pandemic collided with Brexit, resulting in severe shortages of the chemicals required to treat wastewater. As a result, in 2021, we saw over 370,000 discharges of untreated sewage, totaling 2.75 million hours. At this rate, it won't be long until Primark replaces its swimming costumes with hazmat suits. Now that we've identified the problem, we need to look at those responsible for it. Clearly, the water companies are primarily to blame, as they are responsible for managing and investing in the infrastructure to handle waste. However, they are also accountable to shareholders who will always opt for profit over investment, cost savings over safety. If private ownership is to work, it needs oversight. In the UK, that is handled by the Environment Agency, which is responsible for protecting and enhancing the environment, and Ofwat, which regulates the water and sewerage industries. Unfortunately, neither has demonstrated any desire or capability to protect the interests of the public. The head of the Environment Agency, Alan Lovell, recently revealed his true colours. He criticised government proposals to increase the maximum penalties that can be imposed on water companies, penalties intended to stop them from polluting our waters. He defended the privatised water system, claiming it supported investing in infrastructure, even though water companies have been closing down water reservoirs and selling them off to private developers. He defended water companies marking their own homework by claiming that self-monitoring their own failures is a good thing, even though many of the sewage monitoring systems needed for this are offline or haven't even been installed. He even defended his own record, claiming, "I think we've done pretty well. I think we have helped the nation to become more resilient to the impacts of the changing climate." Tell that to all the people getting sick when bathing in our rivers and oceans, or the tourism industries impacted by our declining water quality. Hardly a man of the people, is he? And Ofwat is no better. The head of Ofwat, David Black, has defended water companies, claiming that critics are too harsh on them and simply don't understand such a complex issue. He even defended the multi-million-pound salaries of water company executives and the multi-billion-pound payouts to shareholders, claiming they had helped support investment. Yet Thames Water has had to bring in an investment bank to explore financing options for the company, which has racked up £14 billion in debt. Servicing that debt already amounts to around 20% of people's water bills. Ultimately, both agencies are overseen by the government, specifically the Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. Yet in the past 12 years, there have been 9 ministers responsible for that role, appointed by 8 governments. There is so much political instability that people are barely in the role for a year before their replacement arrives. I doubt even McDonald's has that sort of staff turnover. So where do we go from here? Unless we want to be famous for our toxic rivers, it's clear that something has to change. For starters, we have a political system that encourages short-term thinking with a revolving door of ministers that barely have a chance to put their name above the door. These disposable governments are then appointing regulators that defend corporate interests and stand idly by as our oceans and rivers are turned into open sewers. One way to address the political instability is to look at proportional representation. That is part of what has allowed Germany to have remarkably stable governments and a prosperous economy. Meanwhile, Italy and the UK both utilise first-past-the-post systems, which has resulted in infamously unstable governments and poor economic development. Government should be formed through consensus, not a political back and forth that sees each party trying to undo the work of the last. Protests are another way to tackle the issue. They can help shine a spotlight on the issues, putting pressure on governments and regulators to take action to avoid an onslaught of negative headlines. And finally, there is legal action, like that being taken by the Good Law Project. They are currently taking the government to court to seek a judicial review over government plans to address untreated sewage discharges. Plans they argue simply do not go far enough. And they make a very good point, as the current plan would give water companies until the year 2050 to address the current crisis. That's another 27 years or 35.1 Secretaries of State. Well, all of this was certainly eye-opening, and this video barely even scratches the surface on what is going on around the country. If you've enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe, as that will help support me to make more videos on this and other topics. And as always, if you've got any suggestions for my next video, then please let me know in the comments below. I've been Jonas, and I hope you have a fantastic day.